right, are we ready? Awesome. So, first of all, so pumped to be here in Argentina. I was raised here, and today we're discussing one of the key topics in crypto, which is stablecoins. And why is this so? Some people say fintech is kind of the front end of all of the digital currency topics. DeFi can be thought of as a back end, and stablecoins, I think personally, is kind of a back end of DeFi. And we're going to discuss why is this so. So for those who maybe don't know what stablecoins are, because they're joining us from all over the world, stablecoins are digital assets that, or fungible tokens issued by a permissionless or public blockchain that have a stable price. And you can probably guess why this is very important. With stable price, we can do a lot of things like collateralizing and borrowing against something that we know is going to stay stable and basically gain mass adoption on everything related to digital currencies. So with that, honored to be in this amazing panel. We have Stani from Aave. We have, woo!
GM, Degens.
Sorry. We have Benjamín from QiDao, My Finance. Mariano from Maker. And Gerrit, who joined us last minute from Curve. So with that, guys, maybe let's kick off just by giving a brief introduction on what you guys do. How are you involved with stablecoins? And yeah, let's start from there. Stani, do you want to, or yeah, whoever wants to start?
I can do a quick introduction. So, well, I've been building decentralized finance for the past 6 years. So one of the first versions that we built was a kind of like a protocol, or we call them dApps back in those times, ETHLatam, and it was essentially a similar liquidity protocol as you see today Aave is, where you supply cryptographic assets, use them as a collateral, and then you draw liquidity. And this was 2017, late 2016 when we started to build, and that was the time when we actually didn't have any stable coins in the whole Ethereum ecosystem. So actually when you're putting assets into and use them as a collateral, you're borrowing either ETH or so-called USD peg ETH. So you borrow 100 USD worth of ETH and return later 100 USD worth of ETH. And that wasn't very best user experience, because you have to manage your kind of like exchange and volatility risk. And main stablecoin back a few years ago was essentially USDT, Tether, on an omni-chain. So that just shows us like how young the space is and the idea of stablecoins. The Aave protocol itself is a protocol where you can supply different kinds of assets at the moment, and most of the assets that people are supplying range between Ethereum and governance tokens, but also stablecoins. And we have main stablecoins are DAI, USDC, USDT, and it's a market essentially where you can earn yield on your stablecoins and also borrow that liquidity as well and finance a goal that might be in decentralized finance, or maybe you use the funds to convert into real fiat and pay a tuition, a mortgage, or buy a car, whatever the finance goal is. And the Aave team, recently, we have been focusing on building a stablecoin that is governed by the Aave community. So that's Go. And the idea of the stablecoin is that you can actually earn yield on your collateral at the same time while you're borrowing. But it basically just is another stablecoin within the Aave ecosystem, supporting all the other stablecoins.
Amazing. Gerrit?
My name is Gerrit Hall, here representing Curve Finance. Curve Finance, I do developer outreach, so this involves building a lot of educational tutorials to help developers get up to speed with some of the amazing tooling in the Curve ecosystem. This includes Brownie. I talked yesterday about Vyper, which is a smart contract programming language that has underpinned a lot of what Curve has built. Curve is a stablecoin AMM at first, more recently launched its V2, which allowed for non-stablecoin transactions, but for most of its existence, Curve has been known for extremely low slippage transactions amongst stablecoins. So its flagship 3 pool contained 3 of the largest stablecoins, USDC, USDT, and DAI. And with several $1 billion worth of liquidity, low slippage meant the capability of moving amongst these coins at very, very affordable rates, which is very useful, especially for large whales in the space that we're trying to make large-size transactions. And as mentioned, Curve did this through Michael Egerov's stable swap invariant, which was improvement upon previous formulas, which is better suited for stablecoins. And in V2, extended this invariant to a much more complex set of pools, allowing for transactions amongst differentially priced assets like the Tri-Crypto pool, which allows transactions between Ethereum, Bitcoin, and USDT, and also with incredible efficiency and no external oracle, just based on the trading volume of the pool. It's able to determine the spot price and rebalance liquidity accordingly, which now constitutes the majority of Curve's volume.
Amazing. And we're going to get more into the details on advantages and disadvantages of centralized or decentralized stablecoins and all that. Please, Benjamín or Mariano.
Sure. So MAI is a CDP stablecoin, much like MakerDao's DAI, that allows you to take collaterals and then mint stablecoins against those collaterals, and do so at 0% interest. You don't pay interest to mint these stablecoins. Now, the collaterals can be in almost any chain. We're on 20 chains right now. And we also take interest-bearing tokens like Aave deposits, like year-end deposits, staked-out deposits, and other strategies that allow you to earn interest on your collateral while you're borrowing the MAI. And then you can do whatever you want with it. You can bridge it to Solana, to Ethereum now, to Polygon, to all the different L2s. So really serving as this kind of value transfer between all these chains. And the way it came about was we were all huge fans of Maker. I mean, we love Maker and what they've pioneered in terms of the CDP model. But we saw that each chain was going to need a stablecoin. It was very important that you could mint liquidity on every chain and not just bridge it. And we didn't think that people were going to make a stablecoin on every chain. We saw that everybody was just going to fork UniV2, maybe make other lending platforms. And we were right. I mean, to this day, there's not that many stablecoin platforms outside of Ethereum. Most of liquidity needs to be bridged. And that puts people at a disadvantage that don't have the money to be transacting on Ethereum. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but this idea of extending these financial instruments to people in countries that might not have huge net worths in order to transact on chains like Ethereum.
And we're in ETHLatam, so of course we're going to talk more about how is this implemented in countries like Argentina, where we have a lot of issues with our currencies. And just to clarify, CBD, collateralized borrowed debt?
Yeah, it's collateralized debt position, so it's backed by collateral. So you can't have less collateral than there is MAI in circulation. There's always more collateral by like a pretty big margin. So
basically a smart contract vault, right?
A smart contract vault. And actually, they're all NFTs. So all of the money that you put into QiDao is stored just in your NFT, and nobody can touch it. We can't access it. Other users can't access it. And it's also segregated by the collaterals. And so anything that happens with one collateral won't trickle down to other collaterals. So it's super isolated lending.
Awesome. Mariano?
Great. Well, hi all. My name is Mariano. I'm working at MakerDao like almost 5 years now. Since we started with Sai, it was like the first version of DAI, which only has Ethereum as a collateral. But in reality, Maker is much older. It started in 2015. You can see in Bitcoin Talk forum the day that was presented with the white paper and all the explanation of the CDPs and the over-collateralized model. And yes, I've been working for the last, I would say, 4 years, mostly focused on Latin America, and obviously in Argentina, since it's my country. And the last 2 years, I've been working in my own core unit that is called MakerGrowth. Core unit is kind of like a company that provides a service to a decentralized protocol. In this case, it's MakerDao. Since MakerDao is just a set of smart contracts, it cannot hire, right? But the maker holders can vote who can be these core units that provide services for the protocol. And MakerGrowth is dedicated to get new implementations, get new partners, and make also communications and marketing on behalf of the protocol, right? It's been a really cool year last year. There are a lot of things happening right now. I guess that, well, we have a lot of topics to talk, right?
Exactly.
For the things that are happening right now. But yeah, so far, as I said, for me, it's really interesting because I believe that there's only 3 trillion market or crypto market that will be Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins, right? Yeah. For a lot of reasons. I mean, stablecoins can be also like the entrance door for new people, right? But it's also like an amazing financial instrument for emerging markets, right?
Yeah. And
this
we're going to dive deeper.
Yeah,
into
this combined with all this new technology, I believe that we have something really cool to work on.
Great. So, yeah, let's dive deep into the meat of this conversation, guys. What do you think? Yesterday, Mariano Conti said this was probably one of the most picantes panels here. And yes, it's muy picante.
Spicy.
Very spicy. Why is this so? Because a lot of the things going on in crypto, as we mentioned before, they have the back end of DeFi, and a lot of that goes into DeFi rely on some sort of stable asset, right? So you have different options for maintaining the peg, maintaining a stable value of something. And I think maybe simple words to put some contrast, and I'd like to discuss this with you guys and what's your view on each of the ones, but maybe, liquidity versus volatility. That's a pretty big chicken and egg problem, right? Because you don't get liquidity without something that you can trust and use more and get mass adoption, but also you don't get mass adoption if you don't have enough liquidity. So that's probably one of the things, and that's why also having people involved with one of the biggest liquidity providers like Aave or Curve is so important here, right? Then another topic maybe that we can discuss is centralized versus decentralized. Lately, we had a big issue with Tornado Cash for centralized. We can see how governments can blacklist a centralized company and basically track everything going on inside a usage of a digital asset. So that's a huge risk. And in the US, for instance, if you're a US citizen and you now use Tornado Cash, and correct me if I'm wrong, you basically can get liable by just visiting the webpage, right? So huge liability there, huge risk that can blow off an entire ecosystem. Versus decentralized, that maybe, Benjamín, you can talk more about that and how you do over-collateralization. And maybe a big summary of this. Humans or machines, right? Do we trust humans on maintaining a stable value of something, or do you trust a smart contract and an algorithm? So maybe, Gerrit, if you want to start with this.
Yeah, a bunch of great topics mixed in there. I could probably spend hours talking about all of these, but we only have, I think, half an hour, so I'll keep it brief. As far as machines versus humans, if you can audit the code and you can view the code, you have essentially 100% trust in what the machines are going to do. So I will definitely trust a machine over a human. We saw something very interesting happening over the course of the most recent kind of crashes within crypto, where when people had debts to pay, they weren't scrambling to pay back their human creditors, they were scrambling to pay back Aave, because that was the important one. That was the one that they couldn't get in the phone and beg for more time, beg for an extension. The code was the code. So the code was the law, and it proved incredibly immutable. As far as some of these other questions...
so wait, guys, take notes. Machine 1, human 0 for now, okay? We're going to keep this tally and see how we end in this round. Yeah. What do you say, Stani, machines or humans?
Well, I don't know. I kind of don't trust both of them. I mean, it's like, you know,
Okay.
don't trust, verify.
Pick one.
It applies to humans and machines. But I say that because I really think smart contracts and essentially like immutable code and the ability that you actually can't change it arbitrarily by anyone is, or very hardly, is an incredible invention. So it really reduces the need to trust each other or middlemen. And I think what the example of actually centralized creditors basically taking a lot of exposure, us not having, as the public, any visibility, that's a big of an issue. And in terms of like decentralized finance and looking at things what we had, like the lending protocols, and you actually have to obey the rules that are set by the smart contract, it really brings sort of benefits. But something I want to remind is that it's the people who are setting those rules as well. So essentially, like if we as the people, we fail to set the right rules, we might see protocols taking excessive risk, and that leads to problems, even if it's built into the smart contracts.
But also, sorry to interrupt, how do you get these people to agree on something, right? Because if you're talking about kind of a DAO setting the rules, and a DAO at the end is a group of people, right? But these people have to get consensus, right? So that's kind of also relying a lot on machines, right?
Machine, but also it's end of the day, it's humans.
I like machines. Yeah.
No, I mean it's okay to be machine maxi because we're like relying upon machine systems end of the day. But the thing is, like, it's the people behind of the machines that are coming together and putting these rules that then will be enforced with smart contracts. And I think the trickiest parts what we have is that, you know, if we set rules that are taking excessive risk, which can happen in the Aave governance, it can happen in the Maker governance, essentially it's very hard to change those parameters back or do any kind of like risk mitigation. And if you look at the Aave governance, for example, if you set a wrong parameter, it takes a couple of days to actually get that parameter reset there. So I would say like machines can be as failure as humans as well, and it's about more using machines as tools. But I truly believe that like code and smart contract-based code is very exciting innovation, and I love the fact that you don't need to actually trust a third party. What I'm thinking is that also like there's a path where we need people to decide what's right and wrong, what's risk that should be taken by these protocols by coming together with the decentralized governance. But there's also a path for governance minimization, because the decentralized governance can be also a risk for the community as well. Essentially because, let's say, if the Tornado Cash example goes further and many of these decentralized governances start to actually take measures to block transactions and so forth, actually, the community can become an attack vector. And in some cases, you need governance minimization. And I just think governance is a tool anyway, so it's just where you have to have governance minimization and where you actually should apply a very wide ongoing consensus.
So maybe very briefly, what's Go's approach? Go is recently announced Aave stablecoin. What's the big difference with Go?
Yeah, so in terms of Go, I mean, technically, Go allows the Aave depositors to earn on their collateral while they're minting the Go stablecoin. But end of the day, it's governance decided interest rate that we're applying. The protocol itself has been built in a way where you can actually delegate that governance power, or let's say that setting the interest rate to a so-called risk admin as well. And this feature is existing in the Aave version 3, where, for example, we have different, so just to give some brief about how the Aave governance work is that we have a group of people who come together and they decide on different proposal, whether they're going to get executed and voted upon on-chain governance. But the way that the governance also works is that there's different service providers. So for example, building the Aave protocol, there's multiple developers, and also there's multiple entities that are managing the risk as well. So there's, for example, Gauntlet, there's Figma, Prime, and Certora that are managing the kind of like a security risk side and providing those services to the DAO. So the risk admin actually can be delegated to one of those entities to set parameters between certain kind of like fixed threshold. And that's a way of actually creating more like a robustness into the governance so that you don't need the whole actual consensus to come together to change and adapt to market conditions. So Go essentially is governed by the decentralized governance in terms of the interest rates, risk parameters, but some of these features can actually delegate it further. What I want to see also in the Aave ecosystem, maybe slightly, not necessarily related to Go in general, but I would love to see a pool where you don't have any governance at all, and just kind of like a test how, and experiment how that will work as well.
Awesome. Mariano, maybe like let's talk more about DAI. DAI is a very decentralized, right, stablecoin. How do you guys? What's your view on these topics? And maybe let's even get more specific into the technicals. Like, how is DAI really going to survive and like get better with the pegging in the future, avoiding the pegging and all the risks related to that? And,
yes.
and maybe how would you contrast what you guys are doing with maybe more centralized stablecoins?
Yes, there's a lot of discussions right now on the community of MakerDao in terms that, first of all, if you have somehow wants to have like a hard peg to the US dollar, it is very hard not to have a fiat-backed stablecoin on the protocol, right? And that is why the community voted to create the price stability module, right, at MakerDao.
So just to clarify, fiat, maybe most of people here know, but it's dollar or or peso,
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean government-backed, right, printed out of thin air.
Shitcoin.
Yeah, well, and the community voted this this smart contract in which you send one DAI and you get one USDC, or you say one USDC and you get one DAI, and you can you're able to arbitrage the price because you can get one but sell it on the market at the price that maybe it's 110, for example, right? So the thing is that module allowed DAI to be very, very close to $1 in price, right? And this is something that was very important for us because since we are a DEP-based stablecoin, we have I don't know if you guys remember the Black Thursday, what happens with the OMS, dictating the pandemic, in which the Ethereum kind of clocked, right? They stopped working, and people was like really in a hurry to close their CDPs, and they start buying a lot of DAI to close their CDPs, and that aggregated demand pushed the price of DAI to 1.5 cents, right? Well, 1.20, I believe, at some point. And if you think about it, it means that it gets 20% more expensive to close your position, right? And that is a pretty difficult thing for the borrower. So
Mariano, how does this impact? How does this impact people in Latin America specifically? And maybe let's switch to that topic.
May I finish my last explanation related to this? Yeah. Hi. The idea with that is to have a stablecoin that is very close to $1, But somehow also you need a decentralized part, right? That is, for example, the Ethereum collateral, right? This is something that this is the explanation that I always give, and what the community also agrees, right? Is that MakerDao is somehow like a live system which adjusts to what markets need, right? Sometimes the markets really need to get leverage, and you have a lot of Ethereum in our balls, and people leverage in Ethereum, right? So in the peak of the last bull market, we just had, for example, less than 20% of USDC in the PSM, and all of the things were Ethereum and WBTC. But right now, since the market it's obviously tanking, we are kind of in a bear market, and people need what is on the PSM. We get a lot of stablecoins. Why? Because people is arbitraging the price of DAI and the USDC and the USDP, or fiat-backed stablecoins. For DAI, that is good. We are close to $1, right? I mean, all our collateral shrink a lot in the last couple of months. But this is how we believe that DAI is decentralized, right? In which the people is the one that is dictating how the protocol behaves, right?
But now we're talking about the people that do arbitrage, right?
Yes.
This is not the same as the people that might want to use DAI to buy a banana in the supermarket, right? So
Right.
Let's maybe switch to that topic, because I think we have 5 more minutes left, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe, yes, let's switch to that topic, and maybe you can start with that. How is DAI useful in Latin America? How is DAI useful in Argentina?
Yes, that is
and
a
maybe
very,
I would love to hear also, Benjamín, your position on this.
that is a very good question, and I believe, and Maker community believes also, that in emerging markets, it's not useful to use stablecoins as a mean of payment, right? There's something called the Gresham law, that it means that you will always try to pay with the worst currency that you have and keep it the best, right? So when you talk to people, say, I don't want to pay with DAI, I want to keep my DAI, I want to pay with pesos, patacones, caramelito de colores, right? I mean, that's the thing. And this is something that when you get to talk to a lot of people, you understand how stablecoins works in an emerging market and how stablecoins works in a kind of, let's say, United States or Asia, right?
And that's very true also. Like some platforms in Argentina started with the idea of let's use crypto for everything, but at the end what ends up happening, or especially in these times of bear market, people end up saving that and changing it to peso, for instance.
I mean, but there's also like the problem with some of these fiat currencies is that the inflation is substantial. Like, for example, what I have been investigating in Argentina, it's pretty much like the prices double in a year on concretely. And I think that's also kind of like a problem. Like if you go and buy a banana, and you say you decide not to buy it today, but you go and buy it a bit later, and you have less purchasing power. So for me, like stable coins like DAI and Go are like actually they have a lot of potential, and doesn't necessarily realize today, because the way we have kind of like in the moment we are now in the whole infrastructure is still, we're not there yet. So if you think about just going a couple of years back when the Maker stablecoin started to get more adoption, and you have all this liquidity in decentralized finance, but making payments between peers is a very costly transaction on Ethereum layer 1.
Yeah.
But now with the layer 2s, we actually actually have an opportunity to get stablecoins into organic usage. And this is something I have seen in the past where in the beginning when MakerDao was launched, there was a lot of interesting payment applications being built. And for example, now it's actually when you can get some adoption for those applications. And what I understand is that a lot of people still actually use Binance to transfer value amongst the peers. That's a fucking database, right? And you could actually use now something like layer 2s that are inheriting the security from Ethereum. So I think like now it's like very good like opportunity to get that organic adoption. And I think that will happen in the next maybe couple of years now.
And I love to hear about Benjamín. Maybe quickly, the robustness of your stablecoin. Why is it so?
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
and then just go directly into Latam, because I think we have maybe 1 or 2 more minutes left. Yeah. 2 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Stani was saying. Stablecoins should eventually be what people use to transfer value, because if you owe me 10 pesos and you pay me tomorrow, I'm going to get less money than I was owed, right? The problem is, what if you are paying with USDC? Tomorrow the US can say, I don't like you, blacklist, and suddenly you have no money. I mean, let's be honest, Tornado Cash users were stolen money by Circle. Whether it's moral or not, that's another question. And so for us, we have 0 USDC backing us. We have 0 any centralized anything backing us. We have over 60 collaterals on 20 chains that back our collateral.
What about security, though? Like the amount of signatures, then isn't that important?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we were chatting about earlier, right? Do you trust people or do you trust code? There are some stable coins that are fully decentralized. I think the only major protocol that's completely decentralized is MakerDao, right? Everything is completely DAO. But then you open yourself to potential governance attacks. Yeah. So then we look at other models like maybe Aave, where you do have that DAO, but then you also have a multi-sig that can, if something really bad happens, somebody's there to do something. So I think it's definitely
on that point, I think it's interesting to understand that for a DAO, for instance, yes, it's people who are deciding, but it's a machine who is actually deciding the consensus mechanism. And then that consensus mechanism will be adding proposals and adding changes to the underlying code that will create the peg or everything that you can build on top of.
And not only that, I mean, if you have DAI or if you have USDC on Ethereum, it's one thing. If you have those tokens on Metis, on Optimism, on Arbitrum, it's a different DAI. I mean, MakerDao didn't mint that DAI. A bridge minted that DAI, and that's usually either it has more trust assumptions than the DAI that's minted on another chain, and so I think that's something important to look at as well. What are you holding, and do you really trust it?
Amazing. So maybe if we have 1 more minute for some quick thoughts, maybe 20 seconds of something that really excites you, maybe some alpha for people here.
For me, it's MakerDao.
And again, this is not financial advice, okay?
MakerDao multi-chain strategy. Soon we will be in Arbitrum and Optimism with native DAI there.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that too. But no, I think the value transfer between chains is what I'm most excited about. Today, if you want to take $20 million from Optimism to Solana, you really can't. I mean, you can do it with Mai, but we're only so big, right? If you want to move from Arbitrum to Polygon to Phantom to Harmony to Moonbeam, how do you do it? I mean, it's just there's only one stablecoin that lets you do that, and that's not going to suffice for an entire economy. So I think this bear market, we're going to see a lot of stablecoins trying to push the boundaries of this cross-chain narrative. MakerDao, I'm really excited that are going to now be really minting on these different chains, because it's going to allow for more value transfer and not just have everything on Ethereum and then sparsely populated chains elsewhere.
Amazing.
I'm super excited about all of these ideas too. So, and I think for me, exciting is adoption through layer 2s, where all these stable coins and we can use them as means of payments potentially in the future, or even as internet money. More people are coming into this space, and layer 2s are a way to get more adoption with lower transaction costs and still using Ethereum as the base layer, inheriting the security from there. That's very sexy to me.
It's very sad for me that here in Argentina, stable peso is an oxymoron. I do believe that cryptocurrency is the solution, because it's relatively easy for anyone here to come up with an idea for a new stablecoin, ERC20 token, launch it and deploy it, and very quickly have word spread through the community. So it's really incumbent on all of us to build the future. So I'm most excited by the innovation in this space.
Amazing. Well, with that, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.